There we go. All right. So I hope you can all hear me okay.
Yes.
I'm in the shul again on the shul Wi-Fi, but hopefully it's good. Oh, everybody can hear me is good?
Yeah.
Okay, so as there's a few of us, like last week, I did mute everybody and we had a little bit of interaction during the shir. So if anybody wants to be quiet or, wants to not be heard, so feel free to mute yourselves. There's only a few of us. Obviously, if there's a lot of noise coming from somebody, I can mute you. But otherwise, it's good because we can sort of feed and so on. So as you, I'm sure, are aware, just by walking around your neighborhoods, certainly in my neighborhood, this week is, well, what is probably considered a pagan festival, but certainly in America, it's all about money. Is the holiday of Halloween. So I thought I would discuss some of the Jewish ideas and concepts about ghosts and demons. And actually, it's very enlightening. And I just actually was looking at the Gemara. I don't have it at home. I was looking in my Gemara, and I just see that the art scroll in its commentary comprehensive sources. I think I'll mute everybody. Hold on. Let's mute everybody. There we go. Okay, so everybody is muted. Oh, hello to Sheila Hecker. How are you? Say hello properly afterwards. Okay, so demons and ghosts. As I tell my daughter, you know that the ghosts outside our house, in our neighbor's house, in our streets, they're not real, because if they were real, they'd be too expensive for people to afford. The ones you buy in the houses are not, they're not expensive enough. So they're clearly not, ones are not real. But what is the Jewish view on ghosts and demons? So I'm going to start like I did last week and was able to tie it in to the parasha. And also, it is very much in conjunction with the theme that we were talking about a lot last year. Those who were on my shiurim a lot last year know that we discussed the Rambam Maimonides' view on Nevuah, prophecy, and seeing angels, and he didn't believe that anybody could see it in their form, and he didn't believe in Har Sinai was in the real form. Remember all of that? You can look at all my shiurim on YouTube, and we had the big machlokes between him and the Ramban and the Abarbanel, and a lot of harsh language and rhetoric went backwards and forwards, even before election time, between them, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that we can tie in to all of this. Well, we're going to start. Oh, yes, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. I made a little sheet again. Hold on. Let me share my screen. Let's see if this is the right one. There we go. Shadim and Ghosts. There we go. Shadim and Ghosts by Rabbi Saunders. That's my, so hopefully you can all see. So the first reference is in Parshas Noach. Remember, we say often, until Tuesday night, you can make Havdalah, so that's counted as the Sedra from last week. So, Bereshis, Pasuk Vav, chapter Vav, Yud Tes. Noach is commanded to go into the Teva, into the ark, and it says he must take with him Mikal Hachai, all life forms, which is an extra word. It goes on to say animals, humans. So what is this extra word, Mikal Hachai? Says Rashi, and you can see it on your screen. Cursor to see it, Mikol Hachai, and of every living thing, even demons, afilu shadim, even demons. So Rashi said these demons, these shadim, these ghosts, they were brought into the Teva. That's why we have them today for Halloween, because they survived on the Teva, right? That's how they were able to reproduce after the flood. But they were on the Teva. That's what it says. It says they were on the Teva. That means they must have been in. Okay. So that is that. So clearly we see from Rashi quoting the Medrash that there's such a thing as shadim as demons, right? They were in the Teva. Can you imagine sharing your Teva with demons Halloween all year round, right? And I don't even know if Noach had any candy for them. I think I'm getting carried away with all these candy references. So maybe I'll be sweet to you all and stop them. But anyway, so that is this Rashi. Now, let's look at some sources in the Gemara. again connecting to the Sedra, the parasha. This is from Bereshis last week. The pasuk last week said Noach was 130 years old. Vayoled kidmuso uchalmo. He bore a child that looked exactly in his form, exactly like him. Again, a strange expression. He bore the child in his image. What else is he going to bore a child in? Very strange for the Torah to go out of its way and say these words. So says the Gemara in Eruvin, says like this. Let's read it in English. I'm excited in a Gaic statement of Rabbi Yirmiyah. The Gemara cites other statements of his. Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar said, and we had this in the Daf Yomi, so I remembered it recently, all of those years during which Adam was ostracized for the sin involved in the tree of knowledge, that was 130 years, he separated from his wife, he bore spirits, demons, and female demons. Look in the Hebrew here, it says, V'shedin v'lilin. So again, you see the Gemara talks about demons and female demons and so on. Why? Because it says, by inference, until now, at the age of 130, he did not bear his image, but rather he bore other creatures. So, if you take that Gemara a little bit further, the Gemara says, how can Adam Arishon bore demons and things? It says, how did he do it? So it says, from his wasted seed, from his wasted sperm that he wasted, that's what created. Didn't create humans, it created these, how does it say here? Spirits, demons, and female demons. Okay, so we see from the Gemara thing as demons, shadin, and all sorts of other types of demons. In fact, if you go to the beginning of Bereshis, again, there's another medrash, which says, at the beginning it says, God created Zachar and Nekeva Bara Oso. He created them, male and female. But it says Adam was alone and had nobody. And he created Chava. So the medrash that says before he married Chava, he married this Lilith, this ghost Lilith, and she refused to do anything he wanted. I suppose she was the first ever feminist there was. She was such a feminist, she refused to subjugate herself to him. She refused to subjugate herself to God. And she became this Lilith, this master demon, and therefore God had to create a new woman from Chava. But I don't want to get involved in that because I don't really understand it either myself. Not that I understand this perfectly, but it's interesting through. So let's see how the Gemara describes these demons, and then we'll go into some other sources to see whether we think they exist. So this is the Gemara in Chagiga. Now I just looked at this Gemara in the article, like I said, and it quotes, says, for a comprehensive discussion of demons in all their varieties, we can see Malachi Elyon, Sitra de Samla, by Reuven Margolios. Not sure who he is, but that's a reference. I haven't looked at it. I only just found out. But there is a sefer called Malachi Elyon, Sitra de Samla, by Reuven Margolios. Right. So what does the Gemara say? Gemara says like this. Tana Rabbanan taught, 6 said with regards to demons. In 3 ways they are like ministering angels, and in 3 ways these demons are like humans. The Brisa specifies. In 3 ways they are like ministering angels. Why? They have wings like angels. They fly from one end of the world to the other like angels, and they know what will be in the future like angels. Oh, I see I chopped off the bottom bit. I have the Gemara here. And the Gemara says in 3 ways they are like humans. Oichlin v'shaisim, they eat and drink. Parin v'ravin, they be fruitful and multiply. Or mesin k'mnei adam, and they die like humans. So you see the Gemara talks about these demons that are somehow flying and eating and drinking. And there's many Gemaras and things that we'll talk about soon that one has to be careful about. So you see from the Gemara there's this, and also, of course, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, right? Let me get my finger. Right? The 10 things that were created Bein Hashmoshos, just before, after Adam committed the sin, Hashem realized, whoops, we need to create a few more things for the world to survive, right? The burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu, because now we need Moshe. the stick, the matter, the shamir, the worm that cut the things, the speaking donkey for all the films, and of course the one that spoke to Korach, not Korach, Bilam, Korach's earth that opened up. And one of them is the Yesh Omrim, and some people say, right? Let's look at it. I think it's in chapter 5, if my memory serves me right from saying it so many times during the summer. And it is, no, I'm in chapter 4. That would explain why I can't see it in chapter 5. I believe, yes, chapter 5, Mishnah Ches. 10 things were created on Shabbos twilight zone. And they are all these things. And some people say, V'yesh o af hamazigin. Also these, how does it translate mazigin? Destructive spirits. So we see from Mishnah, we see from the Gemara, there appears to be these demons and the like. But like magic, it's not always what they appear. Now, before we go into the Rambam and we get into the real nitty-gritty stuff of all of this, there are many, many more Gemaras that talk about demons. It says you mustn't go into ruins of a building because there are demons. It talks about you mustn't sleep on your house on your own at night because there are demons. So there are many Gemaras that talk about demons. And also, in addition to Gemaras talking about demons, the Torah itself, right? The Torah says you mustn't over Yidoni, you mustn't do any of these types of necromancing, and speaking to dead people. So the Torah seems to imply that there is some alternate forces that God has created, evil forces, dark forces, magic, right? It talks about magic, you're not allowed to do magic, and so on. And then also, in the pasuk in the end of the Torah, Yizbechu lashedim lo Eloah. These nations, they sacrifice lashedim to the demons. So the Torah itself talks about not practicing magic, not practicing demons, and so on. So that appears in the Torah to be quite categorically clear. There are such demons and so on. In fact, we know the famous story with King Saul was going crazy with David HaMelech, and he was going to war, and he didn't know if he was going to win. The Urim V'Tumim, the chest plate that the Kohen Gadol wore, that would always tell him whether he was going to win the war, not go to the war, wasn't answering him because he had such hate in his heart. So he went to this woman who up the body of King Hanavi, right? The story in Nach, the end of Shmuel, and Shmuel came up the right way up. And she said, I know you must be the king, because normally they come up with their feet in the air and the head on the floor. And this time it came the right way up, so you must be a special man. So you see from the story in Nach that he was able to conjure up the spirit, the ghost, if you like, of Shmuel Hanavi. And Shmuel said, you're going to die tomorrow, you're going to die in the war, you're going to get killed. And that's indeed what happened. And one of the things they say is, even knowing this, Shaul realized this is from Hashem, and he still went to war, even knowing that he was going to be killed. So there's many references in the Torah. There's many references in Tanakh that seem here to talk about ghosts and shadim. So now let's get into some. There. So here we have the Rambam. This Rambam is in the Mishnah, Peresh HaMishnayos, the Rambam's explanation of the Mishnayos in Avodah Zarah for Mishnah 7. But it also appears in the Morel and Nevuchim Guide to the Perplexed. When we were going through last year, the Rambam's view. The Rambam doesn't believe there are any alternate forces in the world besides for Hashem whatsoever. Nobody can perceive angels in this world. Everything is only perceived in a nighttime dream or vision. And all the stories in this week's Sedra of Hashem speaking was all in a dream. The idea of Noah and the Teva was all a dream that Hashem told him to build. All this stuff, right? We went through it. Har Sinai, the whole thing, the Rambam's famous view that Rabbeinu saw something real, right? We went through that many times last year. But now he takes it further. And it says similar in Mola Nevuchim. It was chapter 1, section 1, chapter 7 or 8, if I remember correctly. I was looking through it last night. But here is a better reference. This is now a famous between the Rambam and the Vilna Gaon. So, the Rambam and the Vilna Gaon, both on the campaign trail to discuss whether their views of demons should be voted, and they use some nice harsh language. Okay. I couldn't find an English translation of this, so let's go through it in the Hebrew. So the Gemara, so let's back up. So the Mishnah in Avodah Zarah, very strange for a Mishnah to go into this. The Mishnah actually, which is talking about Avodah Zarah and stuff, says, Shalu es Azakanim Baromi, that the Romans asked the Zakanim, the Jewish elders, why doesn't God destroy Avodah Zarah? If he hates it so much, if it's so terrible, why doesn't he just destroy it? And the Mishnah goes on to say, because if you destroy it just because of a few foolish people, it doesn't call them Rishaim wicked, it calls them foolish. And the Gemara goes on to say, because if anybody goes after these Avodah Zarahs and whatever, they're not wicked, they're foolish. And that's what's causing them to be wicked. And he says they can't destroy the world because people worship the sun, the moon, the stars. What are you going to do? Have no sun, moon, and stars? The world can't exist, so we can't destroy those. So then the Romans said, well, why don't you destroy all the other gods? And not the ones that you need, like the sun, moon, and the stars. To which the Zakanim answered, you can't do that either. Because they'll say, those gods, God destroyed, Hashem destroyed these idols, they're no good. But he left the sun, moon, and the stars. That's a sign from Hashem himself are gods. So that's basically what the Mishnah is saying. So, says the Rambam, that's the philosophers. So it goes on to say that the Romans, the philosopher, thank you, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. That's right, philosophers. The philosophers, they believe in multiple sources of power. Multiple, like the Romans, right? They believed in multiple gods, the god of this, the god of love, the god of this, right? The Greeks believed in multiple powers. He's the power over God of love, and he's the power over all things that I don't pretend to understand, or nor do I want to, because they are foolish. So, right. So where did he say his bit, right? Right. There's talking about the Jews. There are some people who think that things like Shadim, there is some truth in them. But it's awesome. They're true. Something, the Shadim, the ghost, the magic has power, but the Torah says it's forbidden, right? Which is the way I explained it to you and the way we would understand it. There is such a force as magic. There is a force of talking to dead bodies. There's a force of knowing the future, but it's forbidden. Where they don't realize these things are nonsense. Koizvim, lies. We say in Hallel, I sing it about myself because my name is Zev. Kol Adam Ko Zev. Everybody is a liar and deceitful, right? Not even at election time. Everybody says Hallel. Times of David HaMelech, Kol Adam Ko Zev. Everybody is deceitful, right? Everyone uses their own persuasion, their own whatever the way they want is how they attribute the truth. But again, that's that tonight. People think that, but no, it's lies. Kozum, it's lies. The Torah says not to do them. Just like it says, you can't tell lies. I'm not sure which nation he's referring to. This is the nation that Avraham Avinu came out. I don't understand exactly which nation he's referring to, but there's some sort of nation that believes all of this, and Avraham Avinu came out, and he fought al ta'usam against their mistakes. With Svarim hamakukolosam, hamakokeles, and their views. But then he goes on further. The stars, the zodiacs, Kishuv and magic, Mazolos is the zodiac, right? Stargazing and zodiacs, right? And he uses the word the Shadim, and this type of necromancer. Right? All this stuff is rubbish. And talking to the dead bodies. That's all idol worship. To believe they have power in anything. Right? Very strong language. A little bit. Goes on to say there's no other power. Right? And he says it further a little bit. Right? It's very long. Okay, so that's basically the gist of what he's saying. I thought he had a line where he says it perfectly. Well, he just said it perfectly, but I thought there was another line. Here, people say, oh, this has got the mazel of this, well, the mazel of yeah, this has got this mazel, right? And he goes on to say that it's nonsense. Yeah, I thought he had a better. He goes on to explain. And he goes on to explain that it has absolutely no power. So that's the famous view of the Rambam. And he says the same in Moral and Avuchim, the guide to the perplexed. There is no alternate powers in this world. Hashem is there. Smoke and mirrors isn't how they explain it. There's no real magic. There never was any magic. It's all smoke and mirrors. That's the famous opinion of the Rambam. He says it's not true. There are no shadim. There is nothing at all like that. So then the Biagra, the Vilna Gaon, lived in the Vilna, 1700s. This is in the Shulchan Aruch Yodeh Kuf. I quoted this before. I gave a share about this. I gave it in the 3 weeks, I think, last year, not this year, the year before, speaking about predictions of the future and what is allowed, what is not allowed, what you can look into, what you can, we're talking about starting a job on a good day, all this sort of stuff, right? When it came to Rosh Hashanah, the Mazel, and all the Simonim, we've discussed this. But look at the Bia Hagra. Again, he uses very sharp language. Rambam, right? He says, everybody who comes after him argues with the Rambam. There's many lachashim, you whisper things and they come to the name off the top of my head, where you say words and things happen. It's got a name and I can't think of it now. The Rambam was drawn after the philosophy, the Cain, Kosaf, Shekashofim, V'Shemos, L'Choshim, V'Sheidos, K'miyos, all this idea of witchcraft and the demons and K'meyos, amulets, Hakoi L'Hu Sheker. The Rambam said it's false, but he only said that because Hu Nimshach Asaf Philosophia. He went after the philosophias, his heart was turned. Avo, listen to this. You think today's language is harsh. They already hit him on his head, right? They says in the Gaon, they already smashed him on his head. Kolkodo is the head. They smashed the Rambam on his head, allegorically, of course. The Gemara is full of stories of these demons and these shadim. There's a story in the Gemara Shabbos where this witch did something and the boat was moved and destroyed. There's stories, and the Rambam seems to have ignored all of that. Right? All that goes to the stories about the Rabbanim created a calf. They were hungry. They were in the desert. They were hungry. And what can we do? They used these special words and names of whatever. Don't ask me. I've never done it. And they created their own calf to eat. People. And that's what he says. And then he goes further against the Rambam. And these philosophers confuse the Rambam. He makes the Gemara like a joke, right? Litzonos. He makes all these stories of the Gemara not real. And he tries to get rid of them from the Pshat. All the Gemaras that talk about demons and witchcraft, they are as they are. It is real. There's obviously a hidden meaning, but not philosophers say, because they're not really truthful. So you see this big machlokes between the Rambam and the Vilna Gaon, who says they hit the Rambam on the head. He said the philosophy turned the Rambam, right? And so on. So you have this big machlokes. On the one hand, you have clearly Rashi, who brings down demons, right? The Teva. You clearly have the Vilna Gaon, who says you have to take these things at face value. You have to acknowledge that they exist. And you have the Rambam, who says that, no, there are no forces, there are no powers, there are no nothing. So the question obviously is, well, what does the Rambam do with all these guys? Many of them. What do you do with them? So I was looking, there's a few little interpretations. There's a famous vault of the Kotzker Rebbe, which I came across. The Kotzker Rebbe said that when the Rambam knew these things existed, but when he said they didn't exist, he killed them all off. Because he quotes from the Gemara, which says, if you believe in the Shadim, they'll harm you. If they don't believe in the Shadim, they won't harm you. Whatever that means, I don't know. So the Rambam, by paskining the halacha that they don't exist, he destroyed all of them, right? He got rid of them by saying they don't exist, and now they don't exist. He's lost that, I don't know, that spark of life they had. So therefore, there is no more life to the Shadim. So says the Kotzker Rebbe, the Shadim existed until the time of the Rambam, and then the Rambam got rid of them. So now we're going to go into a little bit of very dangerous stuff. And I say dangerous because, in Yiddishkeit, you have to be very careful. There's a lot of debate about, I think they call them rationalists versus supernationalists, rationalists versus supernaturalists. Some people explain the Torah has to be rational, the world is rational, and they explain these miracles in rational ways. So you have to be very careful because the lines between MS and not MS is very blurred. Those who did Gemara, who are doing Daf Yomi, I know there's several people here doing Daf Yomi, know that the Gemara was talking about pi this week being 3, being 3, and there was one opinion that says pi is 1.5. And Tosfos there says that you can't say the Gemara made a mistake. You can't say the Gemara made a mistake because these people, they knew the mathematics was all of this. This was before Mr. Pie was even invented, before you could even eat food of a pie, right? When the pie was even discovered, the Gemara already had it before. And Tosfos says they misunderstood, and he gives a whole example. We're not getting into it now. So you have the people who take the Gemara literally, right? Of course, there's many deep hidden interpretations, but that the people who wrote the Gemara, the Amoraim, was so holy that they knew intuitively things and so on, and everything they write there must be MS. And some people say no, they made mistakes. In the same way as the Gemara talks about, you see that the sun moves around the earth, which we now know the earth moves around the sun. So they say it means that's how you perceive it, right? You perceive the earth, the sun is because you see the sun moving around every day. So you perceive that the sun is moving around the earth, even though it's the other way around. So there's again, saying, well, they made a mistake. At that time, they thought the sun was moving around the earth. Now we know differently. Those of you who were on my share last week know we discussed the name of the Jewish month, which said was Marach Shavan. But we said that the names of the months and the names of the ghosts and the demons came up from Bavel. Remember, we quoted that Yerushalmi that says that these things came from Bavel, right? You remember the Yerushalmi from last week? So some people say, what does it mean? The names of the demons came up. It means the Jewish population were affected by the culture of the times. We went to Golus. The culture was permeated through, and some things got in to Jewish thinking, Jewish ideas that were not necessarily Jewish thought. So you want us to be very, very careful with this because you don't want to cross over the line of saying kafir, saying chas v'shalom that is apikosis and so on. And when many books have been written, many philosophical books, I'll get that word out once eventually, right? I think it's, yes, philosophical books being written by philosophers, by many Jewish rabbis, and recent rabbis and so on, and they've had court cases, are they an apikoros, not apikoros, and so on. So one has to be very careful, rationalizes and understands these things. But let's go a little bit further. There is the Gemara in Gittin. It says like this, Microdikos. The Gemara talks about that sometimes we get hold of this demon of Kodaikus, this disease. So the Gemara says, what is the nature of temporary insanity? Mentioned in the Mishnah. Shmuel said the reference is to one who was afflicted by drinking new wine that came directly from the winepress. The Gemara asks, and let the Tana of the Mishnah, instead of saying the word Kodaikus, should say somebody who was afflicted by drinking new wine, right? He can't sign legal documents, right? Because he's not in a right state, sound mind, I think. The Gemara answers, this teaches us that the name of the demon that causes this insanity is called Kodaikus. So some people say, what does this Gemara mean? The name of the demon that causes insanity is Kodaikus. So some people want to say that these shadim and stuff are not ghosts as we imagine them, Halloween style, of things floating about in terms of ghosts. Rather, they refer to things like bacteria and things like that. The Gemara says you can't leave water overnight because the shadim will attack it and therefore it will be dangerous. But now we know that bacteria can grow and bacteria can get inside these sort of things. Sometimes people say it means people's imagination, right? To a dark house, the Gemara says you're scared. Why? Because of the mazikin. I'm say because of the physical mazikin, these ghosts that are there. So your body goes in, your neshama somehow is reacting to these ghosts. But some people say no. What I meant is not that there's physical ghosts, but when you go into a dark building, your imagination is gripped by this fear. So there are people who try and explain it like that. The Gemara says that each person has 10,000 demons on his right side and 1,000 demons on his left side. I think that was a reference. And some people say it refers to things like bacteria, and it refers to, we know now, atoms and molecules floating about, things. And some people say it refers to, and the Gemara talks regularly about certain demons kill children, and certain demons do this and do that. And people explain it means like diseases, and so on, that diseases can get in, diseases can take hold. And the same here, that this Kodaikus, when you drink this, you get, I don't know, so much sugar, you go so crazy, it's like you've been taken hold by a demon. But really, you go more sugar, I don't know, you get drunk, whatever the expression is, you drink brand new wine, go straight to your head, and you go off your head, as the expression is, right? So some people explain these ideas like that. It refers to other ideas that the Gemara didn't mean literally demons flying about like the ghosts outside my house, which I hope are not real, depending how much they paid for them. Maybe they come alive at night, I don't know. Maybe when I go home now after shul in the dark, I'll see. But there is people who explain it like that. But it's interesting to note, and it is Halloween this week, so I will scare you, like this. So the Gemara, the Shulchan Aruch brings, in my Shulchan Aruch, it has called Oitzim Mefarshim, which is like a compass mentis of various different, you can't put all the commentators of the halacha in the, I'll stop sharing my screen now, and I'll make the joke that you can all see my beautiful face again, but maybe you don't want to. You can put somebody else's picture up on your screen if you so wish. But anyway, so this has like a gathering together of various different Oitzim Mefarshim, it's called, and here it brings down all the things that one should not do. There is a book called Reb Yehuda HaChassid. He was a great pious rabbi, lived at the time of the Gemara. Several things one should not do because of the shadim and ghosts. I'll read out some of them, if I can find what I did with them. Here we go. It says, Lo yistoim adam pesach oichaloin legamre. You're doing construction, you should not completely seal up a window or a door. You should leave a little space, shelo yaziku hashadim, so the shadim should not damage you. I saw it means because the shadim would always go out this door. All of a sudden, right, the shadim can't get out. Whoops, they're going to come back and attack you. Elo yinkov nekev cotton, you should put in a small hole. Again, some people say it doesn't mean literally ghosts. Oh, going to get you ghosts. But it could be diseases, could be bacteria, could be rodents, things like that. Next, on the scare scale, we're going up on the scare scale now. It also says that if you have an oven, you must not move the place of the oven from your house. Lo yitat adam tanov karayin. You mustn't destroy the oven in your house. And then use that place for something else. So if you're rebuilding your kitchen, You mustn't move the position of the oven. You can get a new oven, but you must put it in the same position as the old oven. Why? Again, ki sakana gedola. It's a great sakana because these shadim are hiding behind your oven. Maybe because we said they eat. Maybe they're eating the leftovers of your oven, and maybe they live in your washing machine and they're eating my socks because I can never seem to find my socks when they come out of the washing machine. I always thought there was an entrance to Narnia in my washing machine. Socks somehow slipped into Narnia, and I'll find them. If I ever get to Narnia, I'll see all my socks. But now it could be the shadim are eating my socks. Maybe that's the food of shadim, right? They're eating socks. But on a serious note, it says you shouldn't move your oven because there's shadim behind your oven. But again, some of the rationalists say it doesn't necessarily mean ghosts. It could mean that there are things hiding behind your oven, the space where the oven, you get disease, you get bacteria from the food, the chicken, and therefore you shouldn't utilize that place. And it goes on that if you build, you should not build a brick house yourself. You should get somebody else to build it and you buy it. It says you shouldn't sit on a board of, he said if you're on a ship, you shouldn't sit down on the floor of the ship. And then it has another one that's quite famous that people know. Lo yaseh chaveiro sandik lebeis bonim. You shouldn't be a sandik. That's the person who holds the baby at a bris for two boys' family. That's something that people do. That's quite common that everybody tries to avoid. But also because of the shadim. Another one is not sleeping alone in a house. Person is not supposed to sleep alone in a house. Now, I was listening to a share a few weeks ago, and and he was saying that some people, I think he said the Chazon Ish say that refers to a bedroom. That even if you're in a bedroom, shouldn't be in a bedroom alone. So therefore, husband and wife, if you want to kick out your husband from the bedroom, no can do, because then you'll be sleeping on your own, and it's not good because you'll be damaged from the shade. However, if you put a light on, that is okay because you're not alone, you have the light. So if a person is sleeping alone, one should have a light on. That's also because of the shadim. So again, there are some people say it doesn't necessarily mean the demons that we think of, demons and ghosts, but it could mean that it refers to, I don't know, it's you'll be frightened of the ghost. But certainly the Vilna Gaon and many explanations talk about ghosts and demons, whatever that means, going around. There are other people say there's a Gemara. I didn't put this on my share screen. A Gemara in the end of Kesuvah says Abaye said he caught hold of the mother ghost, and this mother ghost from affecting. So some people say that means he basically stopped the shadim damaging anybody. That's why nowadays we don't get damaged by shadim, Baruch Hashem, because the God says Abaye removed it, whatever that means. He somehow got the shade. Oh no, that's right. The Gemara said he banned her from going to inhabited places, and he kicked the shadim out woods, which is why maybe people are afraid to go in the woods because all the shadim are there. Although shadim never seem to damage bandits, do they? Right? All the bandits sleeping in the woods, they never seem to get damaged by the shadim, maybe because they're evil as well. But I will finish off because I just remembered it off the top of my head. I remembered the Rambam now. I didn't bring it with me. I started by saying the Rambam in the Vuchim says there's no such thing as ghosts, there's no such thing as things. So he asked the question himself, the Rambam. Yes, I remember now. He asked the question himself, what about Adam Arisha? The Medrash said, right, he begot a son in his own image, says the Gemara, because until now, the 130 years, he got all these shading and lilin, right? He had all these ghosts and demons. Says the Rambam, no, that's not what the Torah means. The Torah means, he bore a son as clever as him, that he was able to teach the ways of the world, the ways of Yiddishkeit. Meaning that the other sons that he had until then were, were silly, were not smart, were not, I don't know what he means. I suppose he means they weren't clever. So therefore, they weren't able to understand Adam's ways. They weren't able to understand the instruction, the ideas that Adam was giving him. And therefore, he can't consider, you're not a man after my own heart. You're not really, I can't mold you in my image and my ability to make you into a person like me. Whereas after 130 years, Shais, he was the right sort of guy, made from the right sort of stuff. Adam was able to impart in him Adam's virtues, Adam's way of thinking, Adam's ideas, and that's why it said Kid Musay Uchetzalmai, that he bore him in his own image. And obviously he clearly said there were no mazikin on the Teva. And what would he say, Mikol Hachai? Said Mikol Hachai is just a generalization for all. He does say, that's right. He said it includes a certain type of deer. There is a machlokas, certain animals are similar to other animals. There's some sort of a deer, a wild deer, or an animal, a mountain deer, and a flat deer. Apparently, they're two separate things. So he says, Mikol Hachai, all the living, all these extra animals that you might have thought are the same species, but are actually different. So that's how the Rambam explains. And how does he explain the Chumash? That's right, I remember now. How does he explain when the Torah says we mustn't speak to angels and angels? I'd love to speak to angels. You mustn't speak to the demons and the shadim and the necromancers and the magic, because it's talking about what people were doing. Not that it has any power, but even though it's rubbish and nonsense, you're still not allowed to do it. You say, well, if it's nonsense, why can't I do nonsense? Same would be if Avodah Zarah. If Avodah Zarah is nonsense, why can't I be busy with it? The Torah says no, but not that they have any power. So I thought, let me unmute everybody. Hopefully I haven't you all off. Right, here with all these scaring references. Bet you didn't think you'll come to a Halloween style shir. But yes. But let me unmute people. And therefore, there's much to talk about. And I see, as I said, I see this new reference. I have to try and find the sefer that it brings down here. But fascinating idea as to what these Jewish, these demons and so on. I mean, of course, aliens exist because I'm an alien, right? But demons and ghosts and so on, it's an interesting idea. So when you're sitting around and your kids say, oh, ghosts don't exist, you'll say, well, actually, the rabbi said ghosts do exist. Although you could say, well, the Rambam doesn't say. Also, when your children say, Daddy, ghosts don't exist, I say, you obviously follow the Rambam. So you can say, well, I follow the Vilna Gaon and ghosts do exist. So I'm not sure if that will get you in or out of anything, but certainly an interesting topic in Yiddishkeit. But one has to be very careful how one approaches this, because one has to be careful how one deals with the Gemaras and so on. Oh, bang on 8:15. Oh, very good. I should get extra candy for that.